Hi, everyone. This is a lesson for honors dating October 9th. We are now into our Red Scarf Girl lesson, should be lesson 5. And I am going to start without further ado. We're going to talk about today the Dowsy Bow, which was part of the solo last time. The signs and the posters that the kids were making that criticized the education system and also the people in it. And remember that Anyi, Jeely's friend, and Jeely were having some issues trying to find out something that they could write in relation to trying to criticize any of their teachers, especially because they really didn't want to do it when it came right down to it. All right, so last time we talked about empathy, we talked about sympathy and compassion. This is where you see the internal conflict get a little broader for Jeely. She starts really questioning the things that are happening around her. She's still questioning as to whether she was wrong or whether something else is going on. So with that being said, I'm going to present to you my window, and we're going to go into Amplify. Okay, in Amplify, we are in 7A, Subunit 3, Lesson 5. Okay, and we're going to go to tab 3 straight away. I'm going to show you a picture that is an image of the students making Dowsy Bow. These are huge pieces of paper they would write on to create the criticisms of the education system and of the people in it. So now you can kind of get an idea and see a picture of what it really looks like. All right, so on tab 3, we want to highlight 2 examples that described how the classroom buzzed. The classroom buzzed with revolutionary fervor. So here in paragraph 3, the classroom buzzed with revolutionary fervor. Students spread large sheets of paper on desks, gathered around, shouting suggestions, roamed rooms, reading comments aloud over people's shoulders, calling to others. Okay, all of these would be examples: calling to others, shouting suggestions, rifling papers, reading comments aloud, would be examples of that, something that you would highlight to make it feel like the classroom was buzzing with sound. In your own words, describe how the atmosphere at Jeely's school changed. Okay, so at first it was very solemn. Everybody followed rules in the beginning. Everybody came to school to make sure that they studied hard and did their assignments and got good grades. But they followed specific protocol. They honored the teachers. How has the atmosphere changed from that to this? Just a sentence. In card 2, we'll watch this video. Okay, so with that, we're going to go to tab 4. This is a drag and drop. Match the accusations the students make against their teachers to the evidence they cite. Teacher Wang tries to corrupt young revolutionaries. Teacher Lee is an abuser, And one teacher tried to ruin a student's life choices at joining the Liberation Army. So which teacher between Teacher Wang, Teacher Lee, and another teacher, the teacher made students read a lot so they would ruin their eyesight. The teacher bought a student bread when she did not have any lunch. And the teacher made a student rewrite an assignment multiple times. Okay, so you're going to drag and drop to match each teacher. Number 2, which word best describes what these students felt toward the teachers in paragraph 19? So sheet after sheet, student had failed to hand in her homework on time, and teacher Leah told her to copy the assignment over 5 times. Another student and his teacher had deliberately ruined his eyesight. Okay, so do they admire these teachers? They fear them? The teachers disgust them? Or they have sympathy for them? What best describes what these students felt toward the teachers? Obviously, they are not liking them too much. So which one is it? Okay, card 2. On card 2, you're going to highlight the reasons why Yinlan describes herself as a victim. Okay, so on here, in paragraph 16, Yinlan says, Yinlan, a victim? I was flabbergasted. Yinlan had flunked 3 times. Before this, she describes herself as one of its victims, I denounced the revisionist educational system. Being from a working class family, I have to do a lot more housework than students from rich families, so I have difficulty passing exams. I was forced to repeat grades 3 times. I was not allowed to be a young pioneer. And she goes on. So in paragraph 15, highlight reasons why Yinlan describes herself as a victim. Then go to card 3. Highlight 4 or 5 words or details in the passage that show clearly what Ji Li and her friends thought about what Yinlan had written. Okay, so their pieces, flabbergasted, she had flunked 3 times, Anyi sneers, okay? So obviously they're making fun of her for coming up with what they see as a really lame excuse, okay? Number 2, did Jili and her friends agree with what Yinlan wrote? Why or why not? Write 3 or 4 sentences. Obviously, they do not agree with Yinlan. And this is a danger to them because they're actually siding with the teachers. So keep that in mind. Okay, so on tab 5, we have a writing. 100 words or more. And it says, most of Jili's classmates had no trouble writing Dalzibal. That criticized their teachers, but Jili could not. Write a summary that answers these questions. Why were some of Jili's classmates so eager to write Dalzibal? Why was it so hard for her? And how did Jili's position differ from those around her? So think of the type of student that she is or was versus the type of student that had no problem writing all the criticism against the teachers. It's sort of like not taking responsibility for your own learning. You see sometimes where, okay, so let's say a stereotypical person who comes in as a student saying, it's not my fault, the teacher flunked me. Not my fault, she didn't care. It's not my fault, she didn't tell me that I was missing stuff. So it was almost that they take no responsibility. It's just the teacher's fault. It's all on the teacher. Okay. However, that's kind of what these kids who had no worries or no issues with writing all of this criticism, that's where they're coming from. They were able to pull from the feeling that, oh, well, it's all her fault or it's all his fault. It's not my fault. Okay, but Ji Li was always responsible. Ji Li was always a really great student. So write in a summary that answers why were some of Ji Li's classmates so eager to write these Daojibao? Why is it so hard for her? And how did Ji Li's position differ from those around her? Obviously, that third question, you're going to kind of answer when you're answering the first two. Okay, and hand that in. Okay, so let's go to the tab 7 wrap up. What do you think is going on in the passage? And you'll need to guess, but look for clues that make it good ones. Okay. So I'm gonna read this excerpt real quick. We hurried off to the school playground where the newest Daojibao were posted and searched frantically. There it is. Sunlight caught sight of it. The large red characters were like blood on the poster. Let's look at the relationship between Ri Cheng Li and his favorite student, Ji Li. I suddenly felt dizzy. Relationship? Me? A relationship with a male teacher? The whole world faded before my eyes. The only things I could see were the name Zhang Ji Li and the word relationship. A shaft of evening sunlight flashed on my name. The characters danced before my eyes, growing larger and redder, almost swallowing me up. So what do you think is happening here? Exit ticket. Select the best example of a one-sentence objective summary of the reading. Now that is from what we've already read, okay? Students began to make posters criticizing their teachers for being anti-revolutionary and anti-student. B, teachers were being unfairly attacked and students were showing that the revolution had gone too far. C, I wasn't comfortable with writing Daojibao, but everyone was doing it, so I copied one. D, Ji Li's friends peer pressured her into insulting teachers. What is the summary of what we read? Okay, what we already read about them all taking part in writing Daojibao. Okay, so now we're on the solo. And let's see where this solo goes here. I am going to go to the reading so that we can all be together with that. Okay. A few days later, when I got to school, I was told we were going to post Daojibao on the houses of some of the bourgeoisie, the rich people, living near the school. The class was divided into two groups. One was going to confront old Qian, a stern and frightening man who stalked our alley speaking to no one. The other group was going to challenge Zhang Shi Wen, an unpleasant woman who lived in a house behind the schoolyard. I was assigned to the group going to Zhang Shi Wen's house. Of course, this was not coincidence, not at all. They all knew that she was my relative. Aunt Shi Wen was really my father's cousin, but I always called her aunt. She was at least 50 years old, but she dressed stylishly and wore makeup, and she looked closer to 30. I knew my classmates did not like her one bit. What makes her think she's so wonderful, they sneered. Just look at those clothes she got from her sister in America. Look at her makeup. Bourgeoisie, disgusting. I had almost always disapproved of her too. Chairman Mao taught us that inner beauty is much more valuable than outward appearance. How could she ignore that Chairman Mao said? Song Popo has told me that even Aunt Shi Wen's youngest son grumbled about his mother's behavior. So anything that made her stand out, made her feel better about herself, made her, Aunt Shi Wen was doing things, all of those things, dressing up, looking nice, not a good thing. Just a few weeks earlier, Aunt Shi Wen had complained to the school because some students had climbed into her yard to pick mulberry leaves for their silkworms. The latest affront was too much for the students to bear. About 20 of us formed a straggling column. Yin Lan Lan was first in line. She carried the Daojibao. She's the one that flunked 3 times, and now she's a leader. And Wu Hai, carrying a brush and a bucket of paste, followed her. Behind them, 2 students struck a gong and beat a drum. Let's go! Ying Lan Lan waved her arm vigorously and the group marched off. I watched her with interest. Yin Lan Lan had changed a great deal. No longer hesitant and clumsy, she had become vocal, aggressive, and confident. She stood up straight and threw out her chest, whereas before she'd always slouched. She and Du Hai had taken the leading roles in this movement. The usual leaders of the class, including me, were holding back for some reason. Yu Zhang, chairman of the class and one of the best students, was somewhere in the middle of the line, while I dwindled so that I could be in the back of the group. I didn't want Ang Shi-wen to see me. Although I did not approve of her and although I supported today's revolutionary action, she was still my relative. But I dared not ask to switch to the other group. I would certainly be criticized for letting my family relationship interfere with my political principles. I had no choice but to go. Someone rang the bell. We waited in the narrow passageway outside the door, whispering among ourselves. Before long, Ang Shi-wen came to the door. She was not wearing makeup, and she looked older and less attractive than usual. She seemed taken aback at the sight of us. Her welcoming expression turned into one of nervous surprise. Du Ai took the lead. Down with the bourgeois! Zhang Ziwen, long live Mao Zedong! Fought, he shouted. We repeated the slogans. Then Yin Lan Lan recited, our great leader, Chairman Mao, has taught us every reactionary is the same. If you do not hit him, he will not fall. This is also like sweeping the floor as a rule. Where the broom does not reach the dust, it will not vanish by itself. Her voice was loud and forceful. Today, we proletarian revolutionary young guards have come to revolt against you, bourgeoisie. Zhang Ziwen, this is our Daozibao. You are to post it on your door now. She shook the white paper in front of Ang Shi-wen's nose. Ang Shi-wen tried to smile to show her support of the proletarian revolutionary young guards, but the smile froze before it was fully formed. It was hard to tell whether she was smiling or crying. Yes, I will, she said repeatedly. She took the paste and began to brush it on the door. I could see the brush quivering in her hand. It was an unusually hot and humid day, and with the 20 of us crowded into our entryway, it felt even hotter. Ang Shi-wen gave the door a few more good swipes of paste before she stopped and wiped the sweat off her forehead. Then she took the Daozibao and stuck it to the door, smoothing it out without hesitation in spite of the ink that blacked her hands. Now read it out loud, Yin Lan Lan shouted as soon as Ang Shi-wen finished. Ang Shi-wen had not expected this. She gaped at us in alarm. She did not want to read the terrible things written about her, but she did not dare refuse. Her face was ugly with distress. She knew that no one would challenge anything we revolutionaries did to her. I did not want her to see me. I bent down and pretended to tie my shoelaces, but I could not block out her voice, dry, hoarse, trembling. It said, refusal to let students pick mulberry leaves was an attack on proletarian students. The more you try to improve your outward appearance, the filthier your heart becomes. Your black bourgeois bones are clearly visible to our proletarian eyes. Remold yourself conscientiously. I kept my eyes on my shoelaces and tried not to listen. Hey, what's the matter with you? Someone pushed me and I realized that it was over. On the way back to school, everyone joked and laughed at Ang Shi-wen's humiliation. Zhang Zhili, your aunt really lost face today, didn't she? Du Hao shouted. I could feel every classmate staring at me. I raised my head and said loudly, it serves her right. I made an effort to laugh and joke along with the others. Look at that, someone said with surprise. I raised my head. The door of Grandpa Hong's bookstore had been sealed with several Daozibao. And I'm going to check to see. So that's where we're going to end on page 62 because that's where it ends for this solo. Okay, we are now going to go to card 3. This question has 2 parts. What did some of Ji Li's classmates think about Ang Shi-wen? They thought she was wonderful. They believed hairdressing was very stylish, her dressing rather. They did not like her very much. They appreciated how she treated her son. Why did Ji Li's classmates feel this way about Ang Shi-wen? She didn't treat her son well. She yelled at them as they walked by her house. She had publicly criticized Chairman Mao, or she wore makeup and Western-style dress and had complained about the students to the school. Why didn't they like her? Card 4. Why didn't Ji Li ask to switch from the student group confronting her Aunt Ji to the student group confronting old Chang? A, she wanted to punish her aunt for complaining about the students taking mulberry leaves. B, she didn't want the other students to criticize her for choosing a relative over correct political behavior. C, she likes old Chang and didn't want to post a Daozi Bao about him or hurt him. Or D, the leaders had told everyone they couldn't switch when they assigned the groups. So go back into the reading and check that out, because that's what she stated that explicitly. This question has two parts. What did the students force Anxi Wen to do? A, speak out against Chairman Mao. B, give mulberry leaves whenever they wanted. C, leave town and promise never to return. Or D, put up a poster that displayed negative things about her and then read it aloud. Part 2, which statement best describes how this affected Anxi? A, her welcoming expression turned into one of nervous surprise. B, she stopped and wiped the sweat off her forehead. C, her face was ugly with distress. Or D, she seemed taken aback at the sight of us. Go back and look when Yi Lan demands that Anxi Wen read the Daozi Bao. What is her reaction? That would be the answer here. Card 6. What did the Daozi Bao about Ji Li accuse her of? A, running away from her problems. B, helping Yin Lan with her arithmetic. C, having an improper relationship with her teacher. Or D, being a monster and a class enemy. 7. Match each quote from the text to the central idea it supports. Students feel empowered to attack the adults through their Daozi Bao. Anxi Wen is accused of having bourgeoisie ways. The Daozi Bao became personal as Ji Li realizes she is seen as something other than a model student. Which one goes with which? A, the more you try to improve your outward appearances, the filthier your heart becomes. B, our great leader, Chairman Mao, has taught us every reactionary is the same. If you do not hit him, he will not fall. C, let's look at the relationship between King Cheng Li and his favorite student. So obviously, I'm going to give you a little bit of a bone here. The Daozi Bao became personal as Ji Li realizes she is seen as something other than a model student. That would refer to the Daozi Bao that was written accusing her of having a relationship with a male teacher. Okay, so the other two you just need to match with the correct quote. Go to card 8. Which of the following is not a reason for students give for questioning Kei Cheng's relationship with Ji Li? Which is the following is not a reason the students give questioning Kei Chi's relationship with Ji Li? That's the teacher. They say he likes the working class. They say he likes rich kids. They say he awarded Ji Li a lot of notebooks. Or they say he made Ji Li the teacher's assistant. And the last question, how does An Yi connect with Ji Li's anguish over her Daozi Bao? She shares the hurtful Daozi Bao written about her mother with Ji Li. She stays in the dark schoolyard with Ji Li until morning. She agrees with Ji Li and Yin Lan had been treated unfairly. She is no longer angry with Ji Li for having an improper relationship with a teacher. So go back and listen to the reading to figure those out. We are not doing the challenge writing today, this week. That the two things that are going to be graded are your writing and your solo. I hope that this finds everybody well, and I will see everyone hopefully in class soon. Have a great day.